Today we are going to be looking at ratios and proportions. So a ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division. So for instance, A divided by B, and B cannot equal 0 because we cannot divide by 0. It says that if A and B are a relationship of measured quantities, then it's called a rate. So this is what a rate would look like. This is shown by a division. A unit rate is where the denominator, meaning the number in the bottom, is 1. So if I have 10 over 1, that would be considered a unit rate. So let's find each rate, make it into a unit rate for these first three problems. So I have $63 in 4 hours. So if we just say we worked for 4 hours and we made $63. What is the unit rate? So if I want a 1 in the denominator, I want to take my 4 and divide it by 4, and then also do that to the numerator. So when I do that, $63 divided by 4 is $15.75, and then 4 hours divided by 4 is just 1 hour. So that means I am making $15.75 in 1 hour. For the second one, I spent $5 on 8 pounds of something. So you went to the grocery store, you bought 8 pounds of, chocolate, and it cost you $5. What would be the unit rate? So I would take and divide my numerator and denominator by 8 because I want to end up with a 1 in my denominator. So I'm going to be left with 63 cents for 1 pound. So I'm paying 63 cents for 1 pound for chocolate. Lastly, let's say we're working out. We burn 400 calories in 2 hours. So if I want to find my unit rate, I'm going to divide by 2. 400 divided by 2 means I'm burning 200 calories in 1 hour. So if we're riding a bicycle and it takes us 20 minutes to go 4 miles, I want to find the unit rate. How far am I going in just 1 mile? So I take my 4 miles and divide by 4. Same with my numerator. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so 5 minutes for 1 mile. So in 1 mile, it takes me 5 minutes to ride my bike. So that look at what happens when we are wanting to convert from one unit to another. So we have a sloth who's traveling 0.15 miles per hour. Very slow. So if I have 0.15 miles per 1 hour, I'm going to write it as a rate, and this is a unit rate because it has a 1 in the denominator. I want to go from miles to feet, then I'm going to go from hours to minutes. So let's take a look at just our time. So I want to change my hours to minutes first. I have 1 hour, so if I want to cancel out my hour, since it's in the denominator, I'm going to move it to the numerator. So that means from hours, I'm going to change that into my minutes, and I'm going to put that in the denominator. I know that in 1 hour, there are 60 minutes. So now I've canceled out my hours, so I've converted my hours to minutes. But now I'm going to focus on my miles into feet. Right now, my miles are in my numerator, so in order to cancel them out, they need to be in my denominator. And I want to change it into feet, so I put that in the numerator. There are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So now my miles are canceled out. I'm only left with feet and minutes, which is exactly what we wanted. So when we go to multiply this, we multiply across the top. So 0.15 times by 1 times by 5,280 is 792 feet, divided by, now in the denominator, 1 times 60 times 1, which is 60 minutes. So then to get our unit rate, divide both by 60. We're left with 13.2 feet per 1 minute. So in 1 minute, that sloth is going 13.2 feet. These are going to help you out. So for knowing some conversions that maybe you don't know right off the top of your head. There are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. There are 16 ounces in 1 pound. And there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So we can use those to help us convert each of these 4 statements. So I'm wanting to go from 8 hours and know how many minutes are in 8 hours. So I have 8 hours, just over 1. I want to get rid of my hours, so since this is the numerator, I write it in the denominator, and I want to change it into minutes. I know there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So now I'm going to multiply my numerator. 8 times 60 is 480 minutes. 1 times 1 is 1. So I know there are 480 minutes in 1 hour. So now how many seconds are in 3 hours? So I start with my 3 hours. I need to get rid of my hour, so I'm going to put that in my denominator. But I can't go from hours right to seconds, so I'm going to go from hours to minutes. And there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. I now need to go from minutes to seconds. And there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. So when I multiply my numerator, 3 times 60 times 60 is 10,800 seconds. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So there are 10,800 seconds in 3 hours. So now I have $2 for a pound, and I want to change it into cents per ounce. So if I have $2 for 1 pound, I am changing my dollars into cents and pounds into ounces. So I'm going to have to change 2 units. So I'm going to start off with my money, my $2. So I want to get rid of the dollars and go up to cents. So I know that there in $1 there's 100 cents. So my dollars are now gone. I'm now converted to cents. And then to get rid of my pounds, which is in the denominator, I move it to the numerator, and I'm going to change that to ounces. And I know, looking up here, that there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So in 1 pound, there's 16 ounces. Now I multiply my numerator. 2 times 100 times 1 is 200. My pounds are gone, so the only unit left in the numerator is cents. 1 times 1 times 16 is 16 ounces. So then to find that unit rate, if I divide both by 16, it's going to be, oops, we're down to cents, so 12.5 cents for 1 ounce. Lastly, we're going to convert 21,120 feet in 4 hours to miles per hour. So I'm going from feet to miles, and my hours actually stay the same. So I'm only converting the 1 time. So I have 21,120 feet in 4 hours. I want to keep my hours, so I'm not worrying about that. So to cancel out my feet, I would put that in the denominator. And I want to change to miles. And in 1 mile, there's 5,280 feet. So my feet have now canceled each other out. So 2,120 miles in 4 times 5,280 is 21,120 hours. So when I divide that, it's just going to be 1 mile in 1 hour. So in 1 mile, it's been an hour. So now we are going to look at proportions. A proportion is an equation of 2 equal ratios. So A over B is a ratio, C over D is a ratio, but they're set equal to each other. And B and D are both not equal to 0, because we cannot divide by 0. In order to solve a proportion, we do what is called the cross product. So I would take A and multiply it by D, and then I would take B and multiply it by C, and then solve my equation. So let's look at these 4 problems right here using the cross product. So I'm going to first do 3 times 10. And then I'm going to cross multiply the other way, which will get me 4 times x. 3 times 10 is 30. And 4 times x is 4x. So then I'm down to a one-step equation. I divide both sides by 4. X equals 7.5. So for the second one, cross multiply again. When you have a negative, I suggest you just pick one that you want to use it with. So when I'm going to do this, I'm just going to say, pretend my 30 is the negative, and just make my 12 a positive. Don't make the negative to both the numerator or the denominator. So I'm going to have 8 times a negative 30, and then d times 12. So 12 times d. So 8 times negative 30 is negative 240. 12 times d is 12d. Divide both sides by 12. D will equal negative 20. Next 2. I am going to multiply 8 times the quantity of x plus 3. So what that means is x plus 3 is a group. So I have 8 times by my group of x plus 3. And then I'm going to cross multiply the other direction, which is 4 times 7. So I first need to distribute. 8 times x is 8x. 8 times 3 is 24. And 4 times 7 is 28. So I have a two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 24 to both sides. 8x equals 4. Divide both sides by 8. X equals a half. So next I'm going to cross multiply again. So I have 8 times 6 equals, now I'm doing 9 times the quantity of x minus 2. So x minus 2 is a grouping. So 9 times x minus 2. 8 times 6 sorry, is 48. 9 times x is 9x. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. Two-step equation. So I'm going to add 18 to both sides. So 66 equals 9x. Divide both sides by 9. X equals 22 over 3 if you leave that as a reduced fraction. So last problem, we have a canary's heart is beating 200 times in 12 seconds. So it beats 200 times in 12 seconds. I want to know how many times does it beat in 42 seconds. So I'm going to create a proportion using the first rate that they give me. And I don't know how many times it's going to beat the next time. That's what it's asking me. It says how many times. But I do know it's 42 seconds. So I'm going to cross multiply. So 200 times by 42. And that will equal 12 times x. 200 times by 42 is 8,400. 12 times x is 12x. Divide both sides by 12. So x equals 700, so that means this canary beats its heart 700 times in 42 seconds.